Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 65 of Blender Master Course, Understanding the Cloth Physics. In this chapter, we'll be understanding about how the cloth physics works in Blender. We'll also be using it in order to create some different types of clothes like leather, silk, and in this way, we'll be able to understand about the various settings available in the cloth physics in complete detail. And for those of you who are new to this course, you can watch the previous 65 chapters from the link of the playlist given in the pinned comment. Now before adding a cloth, we first need to add an object in the scene with which the cloth will interact. And so we'll be adding a UV sphere in the scene. So first of all, I'll delete this cube object. So press X to delete. Now press Shift plus A, go to Mesh and select the UV sphere. Right click and select Shade Auto Smooth. Now to understand the cloth physics, let's add a plane object and then we'll be applying the cloth physics to it. So press Shift plus A, go to Mesh and select the plane. Let's move it up in the Z axis and place it over here. Tab into the edit mode. Let's scale it up like this. Now before applying the cloth physics, we also need to understand that applying the cloth physics will make this plane get converted into a cloth, and on playing the animation, it will begin to move in the downward direction, and when it will interact with the UV sphere, it will fall on it and will continue to remain on the UV sphere. But to make this practically happen, we also need to ensure that there are enough number of vertices in this plane which is to be converted into a cloth. So for this, right click and select subdivide, and in the subdivide menu over here, we'll change the number of cuts to something like 20, or maybe let's increase it to 40, and with this we have a large number of vertices in the plane object. So let's come out of the edit mode, and to apply the cloth physics, we'll go to the physics properties, and in this menu, select the cloth physics. Now if I try to play the animation by pressing the space bar, then you will see that the cloth object is not interacting with the UV sphere, and this is because we have not yet applied any collision physics to the UV sphere which will make it interact with the plane. So to fix this, I'll select the UV sphere, go to the physics properties and select the collision physics. Now I'll take the pointer back to the frame number 1 and let's replay the animation by pressing the space bar. And now we'll notice that this plane object is interacting with the UV sphere and it's also animated like a simple cloth object. Now if I zoom in, then you can see that the quality of this cloth is not very good. In fact, if I select it and right click to apply shade smooth, then it kind of looks better, but it's still not perfect. And to improve its quality, we have this quality steps parameter in the cloth physics. By default, its value is set to 5. However, if I increase it to something like 8 or 10, then in this case, two things will happen. First of all, the quality of the cloth will improve, and due to this, the time that it takes to run the simulation in the 3D viewport and also while rendering will increase. So if I take the pointer back to the frame number 1 and play the animation again, then in this case you can see that the quality of cloth has improved a lot. Similarly, if I increase the quality steps to an even higher number like 16 and play the animation again, then the quality will further increase, but with that, the time that it takes to run the simulation will also get longer. So practically, it's good to keep the quality steps value to somewhere near 10 or 12. Also, you can see here that in some areas, the cloth is not interacting in a proper way with its own surface. Its vertices are kind of intersecting with each other, and as a result, we have these irregular patterns on these areas of the cloth. And to fix this problem, we need to use the self collisions in the cloth physics. So if I scroll down, then you have a category known as the collisions. So I'll open it, and in this we have two subcategories. The first one is the object collisions and the second is the self collisions. Right now let's turn on the self collisions, and now just like the cloth object is interacting properly with the UV sphere, it will also interact in a similar way with its own vertices, and this will give it a much better look. So to practically view this, let's take the pointer back to the frame number 1 and press the space bar to play the animation. And now in this case, we'll observe that the vertices of the cloth will interact with each other in a much better way because of the self collisions. And now just like we had the quality steps option for the quality of the entire cloth, we also have the quality option in the collisions category. This quality will control how well the collisions occur with other objects as well as the self collision. So if I increase the quality to something like 8 and let's replay the animation, so press the space bar, and now in this case the quality of collisions will be much better than before. Also, one more thing that influences the quality of your cloth is the number of vertices which you can see in the edit mode. Higher the number of vertices, better will be the cloth quality, and also the interaction and the collisions will be much better. But again, if I increase the number of vertices by subdividing, or if I try to increase the quality in the cloth physics, then it will also take much longer time in order to show the simulation, and the render time will also increase. Now moving ahead, suppose you want that some particular vertices of the cloth object should not move in the animation, or in simpler words, they should get pinned at a particular point. Then for this we have the pin group in the shape category. To understand this concept in a better way, we first need to create a vertex group with some random vertices. So let's select some random vertices vertices over here, and to create a vertex group with these vertices, go to the object data properties, and here we have the vertex groups. So to create a new one, click on this plus button, and to assign these vertices, click on the assign button. Now we'll go to the physics properties, scroll down, and in the shape category, click here in the pin group and select this group which we just created as the vertex group. And now if I press the space bar to play the animation, then you will notice that first of all, the speed with which the simulation is getting displayed is very slow due to the high quality settings that we have applied in the physics properties. And one more thing to notice is that all the vertices that we assigned in the vertex group are pinned at their respective locations and they have not moved even on playing the animation. So this is the use of pin group in the shape category. It allows you to pin any number of vertices at a particular location. So you can use the pin group if you want to create a cloth hanging from a particular point, or if you simply want that some particular part of the cloth should remain fixed throughout the animation. Now moving ahead, another important thing that we have in the cloth physics is the cache settings. It's a very useful tool that helps to save a lot of memory if you want to create a particular simulation again and again in your file, but the only condition is that whatever changes you will do to the cloth object will not get applied to the animation that is saved in the cache settings. To understand this concept in a better way, I'll take the pointer back to the frame number 1, and now in the cache settings, we have the option to select the simulation start and the simulation end, meaning that from which frame the simulation will start and on which frame it will end, and the entire simulation will get saved in your memory on clicking the bake option. So for now, I'll keep the simulation end to 50 frames, and now if I click on the bake option, then it will take some time in order to calculate the physics for each and every frame, and once the entire baking is done, it will show 50 frames saved in memory. Now if I press the spacebar to play the animation, then you will see that unlike before, it's no longer taking a large amount of time to play the animation because the entire simulation is now saved in the cache memory. But if you wish to make any changes in the cloth object, like the number of vertices, its size, or the pinned vertices, then first of all you need to delete the bake by clicking on delete bake, and then you need to click on the bake option again to recreate the entire simulation. Now moving ahead, suppose you want to create different types of clothes in Blender like cotton, leather, silk, etc. And to do this, we basically need to change the different properties like the tension, bending, vertex mass in the cloth physics. Now the reason why we can't change them right now is that we have baked the entire animation. So to change any of these values, we first need to delete the bake. So go to the cache settings and click on delete bake. Now let's scroll up, and now here we have several properties which are used to change the way how different clothes look in Blender. But the most important ones are the vertex mass, tension in the stiffness, the shear parameter in the stiffness, and the bending value in the stiffness category. By changing these 4 parameters, we can create different types of clothes. And since it is not possible to memorize the value of each of these parameters for different cloth fabrics, I have this table for you where I have written the different parameter values for different types of fabrics. For example, cotton, leather, rubber, denim, and silk fabric. This table can help you to create a variety of cloth fabrics just by assigning these values in the cloth properties. Now coming back to the scene, we also have some default values in all these parameters, and the resulting fabric that it creates is the cotton fabric. You can also check these values in that cloth fabric table. But now suppose you want to create the leather fabric in your scene, and to do this, let's first go back to the frame number 1. Now with this plane selected, I'll select the UV sphere also, and we'll be creating their duplicate and we'll place them in the x-axis. Now for the first plane object, we have the cotton fabric, and for the second, let's try to create the leather fabric. So for this, I'll select this plane, and in this table, you can see that the vertex mass value for leather fabric is 0.4. So I'll go to the vertex mass and change this to 0.4. Then in the stiffness tension, the value is equal to 80. So let's enter 80. Then the stiffness shear is 25. So let's enter 25 here. And the last value is the stiffness bending, which is 150. So I'll change this value in the stiffness bending parameter to 150. And now we are ready to view the simulation. So for this, let's first bake the simulation. So go to the cache settings and click on bake, and then it will take some time to bake the entire simulation. Let's also select this plane where we have the cotton fabric, and let's bake this one also. And once the baking is done, let's play the animation by pressing the space bar. Now both the cloth objects will fall on the UV sphere, and you can clearly see the difference between the fabric of both the clothes. This cloth with the cotton fabric looks very thin. However, the one with the leather fabric looks thicker, and the way both of them collide with the UV sphere is also very different. The overlapping is more for this cloth object, but being the leather fabric, we don't see much overlapping in the fabric in the second case. Also, one more thing to notice here is that in both the cloth objects, we have the group of vertices over here pinned at their respective locations, and this is because we created a duplicate of the plane, and as a result, the group of vertices is still selected in the pin group option. So if you want, you can delete the baking and remove this vertex group if you don't want these vertices to be pinned. And now moving ahead, let's also try to create one more cloth object, but this time with the silk fabric. So for this, let's first go to the frame number 1. Now with this plane selected, let's also select the UV sphere, press Shift+D to create a duplicate and move it in the x-axis. Now let's select the plane and to create the silk fabric, we need to input the values according to this table. So in the vertex mass, the value is 0.15. So let's change this value over here to 0.15. Then in the stiffness tension, the value is equal to 5. So let's enter 5 here. Then for the stiffness shear, we have the value equal to 0. So let's enter 0 here. And the last one is the stiffness bending, which is equal to 0.05. So let's enter 0.05. And now we are ready to bake the simulation. So scroll down and in the cache settings, click on bake. And since the baking is now done, so let's play the animation. And with this, you can see that we have 3 different types of cloth fabrics that we created just by modifying the properties. The first one is the cotton fabric. The second looks like leather. And the last one is the silk fabric. You can see here that the silk fabric is kind of very thin as well as smooth, which makes it different from the other two. And so this is how you can create different types of clothes in Blender. Moving ahead, let's also try to assign some material to these cloth fabric. So for this, let's go to the material preview mode. Now I'll select the first cloth, which is the cotton fabric. Now go to the material properties and let's create a new material. Right now, we'll be creating a material with only a simple base color. However, if you want to understand about creating a cloth material in complete detail, then you can watch this particular chapter where we covered the creation of a cloth shader. So let's go to the base color, and for the cotton fabric, I will be choosing the yellow color. Similarly, let's select the leather fabric and create a new material. Let's change the base color from here. Let's assign the red color to it. Similarly, for the silk fabric, click on the new material button, and for the base color, I'll be choosing the purple color. So in this way, you can create different types of cloth fabrics simply by changing the parameters in the physics properties, and you can assign them any material directly from the material properties. And with this, we now arrive to the end of this chapter. Today we learned about the cloth physics in Blender. We used it to create different types of clothes. Then we also learned about pinning a specific group of vertices at a particular location. And most importantly, we also saw this table where you have different parameter values for some important cloth fabrics. So our next chapter will be the chapter number 66, soft body simulations. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.